Good evening and welcome on a Monday night at the end of March in 2026. My name is JW Colwell. I'm joined as always by my good friend Rich Drees.
Good evening, everybody.
Thank you for joining us on Generation Movie, where we're cascading throughout classic movies, their place in history, what we think of them, what critics before thought of them, and all of those things in between. And we have an interesting show tonight because we're focusing on legacy sequels in this current batch of films. And last week we had the Hustler, which is one of the all-time absolute great American movies from the 60s. And tonight, 25 years later, Paul Newman will put the fast Eddie Felson skin suit back on for Martin Scorsese in 1986's The Color of Money, which in many ways is one of the, like we were talking about, like legacy sequels. It's one of the first legacy sequels that gets any kind of like respect. Now you had mentioned the Annie Hardy movie, right? Or, but this is I think this is the one where it's like, this made legacy sequels feasible, right? The Color of Money, the movie we're going to talk about tonight, is the idea that you could go back to a classic character, package it with a really good director in Martin Scorsese, and then maybe even package the original actor with an up-and-coming actor. And by October 1986, when this movie opened, Tom Cruise was now a made man, right? Like, he is coming off of a summer where his film has dominated the summer. The summer of 86 was the summer that Top Gun came out. That will eventually also have its own legacy sequel that we may or may not be discussing at some point. But so Cruise comes out of 1986 as a made man. And this movie helps not only solidify him as a box office draw, but that he can hang with a massive heavyweight, right? Somebody that's theoretically is not even in his weight class, but he's in every scene with, a living film legend, Paul Newman, right? And Paul Newman is, we're going to talk about it later. This is the movie Paul Newman won his only Academy Award for, Rich. And so we're gonna discuss the ramifications of Paul Newman only winning an Academy Award for a role he played in the 60s in 1986, and the fact that it's the only time Paul Newman ever won. As we progress through the night, it will definitely come up. Let's start with news, though. In a weird week for film, the biggest and best news is, and it's kind of a shocking one, Rich, if you make an original movie that people like, people will go to the movies.
Get out.
They may even tell their friends to go see the movie. And then that movie will do what Project Hail Mary did this week, which is an astounding 34% drop from the opening weekend. It hits 54.5 million on its second weekend. It's already earned 164.3 domestically, and is over 32%, I should say, was the drop. And it's already over $300 million worldwide. So it is not only a bona fide hit, but it is, in all retrospects, the first blockbuster of 2026.
Sure.
We've had big hits. Scream 7 did great. Hoppers continue, by the way, Hoppers in second place continues to do banger box office for Disney and for Pixar. So it's great news and amazing news if you're MGM and Amazon, which is they have bucked the trend, right? They have Amazon and MGM has said to the world, we have a streaming service, but we think movies should be seen in theaters. We're going to release 11 movies, 11 or 12 movies this year in theaters. You should go. Mm-hmm. And now they have the first movie of that collective strategy that's an actual bona fide hit. Now there've been, Mercy was meh. Crime 101 was good, but didn't hit. This one is a bona fide blockbuster. It is. It's a movie everybody's talking about. It's good.
I want to plug here for a moment for The Housemaid from director Paul Feig, adapting the novel of the same name. That did fairly well. So well, in fact, that Lionsgate has already ordered up a sequel. Today they dated when that sequel is going to come out.
December 2027. Yeah.
Of 2027. The same weekend as Avengers, Secret War, and Lord of the Rings, The Hunt for Gollum.
I'm not going to lie. That is perfect. It is absolutely perfect. Counter.
I think it's absolutely fucking insane. I'm going to.
You don't think it's a good idea?
Programming. It's counter programming for like one of those movies, but both of those movies are already cannibalizing, so much that I don't see anybody going to Housemaid Secret. I think that's going to be a far distant third place, and they're shooting a franchise that they could have right in the face.
I know. We should talk about this. I know that you are much more in the pro Lord of the Rings side of things. I think some of the negatives that have happened this week, some weird things that have just happened in the movie business. But Lord of the Rings is one of those things where I think it's run its course. So I think the search for Gollum, like I went to a theater on opening day for War of the Rohirrim. I like the Lord of the Rings movies. I think they're great. I think they're, incredible spectacle. But I also think that I think they may have run their course. The Hobbit, the first three Lord of the Rings movies are spectacular. The Hobbit movies it's like the law of diminishing returns. And now we're in a place where we are making sequels that I don't think you can justify, nor do I think they might be good ideas. Like we have a sequel coming out, the news dropped this week. I think I sent it to you, where we have a Stephen Colbert Lord of the Rings movie being written, and it's a sequel, but it's a sequel that takes place in the three chapters that weren't covered by Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings. The Fellowship.
It's set in the there's a framing device that's set in the Fourth Age, which is right out of the appendixes of where Sam, Pippin, and Merry go and visit with Aragorn last time while he is touring all of the kingdoms as King Elisar. And they retrace their steps through the Shire that they originally took when they left with Frodo back in Fellowship of the Rings. So that triggers these flashbacks about some of the stuff that wasn't in those books, or what that's in the book that didn't make it into the movie, including a fan favorite character, Tom Bombadil. There's also some stuff involving Sam's eldest daughter, Eleanor, who's along on the trip with them.
Who stumbles onto a secret. Secret. Rich, I know they're popular and I know it'll do fine. But I think are we at the end of the rope?
Judging too much based on such an incredibly sketchy thing.
Okay, fair. I think the Housemaid Secret. I'm going to tell you right now, not for us, right? Although maybe a little bit for us because I really love the Housemaid, but the Housemaid Secret, not necessarily for us. But I can tell you right now, that is one of the most talked about movies of the year. Right? Mm-hmm. Like in a sense that it hit. It's all it's done on streaming is killed, right? All it's done is destroy other things on streaming. Everybody's picked it up. Everybody's watched it. I think you could have a surprise second place on December 17th, 2027.
Possibly. I think people are just cramming, like, this coming year. We've got Dune 3 and
I can't believe something hasn't moved.
Freaking day. You're right. I can't believe somebody hasn't blinked on that.
I can't believe something
what was the third movie?
Not
Jumanji was also right then.
Is now moved.
They blinked.
Jumanji was supposed to come out 2 weeks ahead of everything.
Yeah.
And they moved it into that slot.
They're going to get slaughtered on Christmas Day, but their remaining weeks after that, they're going to do better, honestly.
Well, and like I said, I think the interesting thing there is Jumanji moved into the window, and I'm like, I think I agree with you on this. I don't know that it's a feasible thing to have 3 event movies in one window. Like, even if it's the most lucrative movie going window of the year, that 20-day span from the 18th to the 3rd or 4th of January has been gangbusters. But yeah. I'm surprised nobody's blinked on Doomsday and Dune, simply for the fact that the contract that Dune has with IMAX theaters, that is greatly going to hurt Doomsday. Not having the premium.
Jumanji
screens.
Have any IMAX? Do we know if Jumanji had any IMAX?
Jumanji doesn't have shit.
Well, okay.
Because what has happened since the Dune contract negotiations came out with IMAX, that they have IMAX screens for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
After when it opens, the news that came out of that was Disney has now been out making major gains on any other premium screen. So 4D.
Let me flip this at you for a second. Whatever I thought, for some reason, because Jumanji did IMAX before, I thought Jumanji was like on IMAX from 11th through the 17th, and then Dune takes over for their 3 weeks or what have you. But here's my thought: whoever is there, maybe if Marvel steps forward a week and says we're going to come out on the 11th, and that gives them IMAX for at least a week. For IMAX. A week for that, and then it kind of goes on to its other thing.
I don't know. I don't know if
that's happening or not. But
I can't imagine somebody not blinking. First off, the other thing,
we'll get CinemaCon in a couple of weeks. So if somebody's going to blink, that's where we'll find it.
That's where it'll happen. But also, I think the blinking is not going to occur because I think this is going to sound silly, but I think Disney and Warner Brothers is going, hey, we'd like some of that Barbie Oppenheimer press, right? So, like, they're not necessarily thinking. And the other side of it is Doomsday and Dune are easy for people to go, I'm going to go see both that day. I can't run the risk of not going to see it on Thursday or Friday for fear that everything will be out in the open because the internet sucks.
Those are both going to be 3 hour plus movies, though.
At least.
Okay. Maniacs like us will be like 6 hours in a movie theater.
6 hours, who gives a fuck?
But
I might go see it a third time. Something.
Remember, the average people who drove was the average people who drove Barbenheimer.
We pick one, and I have news for the Dune people. Like, I love Dune, but Doomsday takes precedence, doesn't it?
Does it?
I don't know. You tell me. What do you think?
See, phases 4 and 5 have been fairly rocky. I mean, if Spider-Man comes out of the gate in July and does monster business,
which it's
going
to, like,
and it has like a little thing that kind of hooks into the beginning of Doomsday, then
the Spider-Man buzz. I think we should get an idea. First off, I think the Doomsday trailers have been mediocre, right? I think, like, they've been cool, but they're not. They haven't hooked
trailers. Those aren't even teasers of trailers.
Yeah, they're basically their thought. You know, their thought complexes.
Advertising.
They're an idea, a speckle of fun.
Again, we'll see the first real trailer.
Dune, while genius and really they've been great movies, and Villeneuve has done everything he set out to do. I think, the two Dune movies that have come out have both come out in March. You know what I mean? Like, they haven't come out in a competitive landscape. Mm-hmm. They haven't come out in June or July, and certainly not December. And I just think it is one of those things where we are looking at it. The Jumanji move baffled me today. It was like 2 days ago when it happened. I'm like, why are you moving to Christmas Day? What are you doing? Like, why would you want to be in the wake of those two movies? But the interesting thing there is the Jumanji movies, the recent Jumanji movies have all done well in wakes of big movies. They're often the second or third choice, right? And then
because once you go to the movie, it starts to become more of a priority in your life again. So you get a lot of people coming out and going, okay, we've seen Dune, we've seen Doomsday. What's next? Is hey, a new Jumanji movie. Hot damn, let's go to that. Like you said, they're in the wake, they're trailing it, but but they don't care. Like, they don't care about the wake. I think Doomsday and Dune, they care about the wake. And my problem, and again, I'm going to see both. I will tell you point blank. I will tell anybody who listens, I am still a Marvel mark. It is what I said it. Here. I'm a Marvel mark, and I keep my eyes wide open, but
I will see Doomsday first. Could have been better. I think Dune. It's an interesting thing where they've gotten everything lined up perfectly for Dune, but I don't know that Dune is particularly. Again, the other two release dates for Dune were not in competitive frames, and I just think they think much more highly of themselves than box office wise than what we're actually talking about.
Well, I know out of the two films, I know which one is probably going to be an Oscar contender.
Yes.
in serious categories.
Yes, of course. And also because it's the end, right? It's the end of this franchise. He's going on to work on Bond.
Well, I mean, I don't see Villeneuve continuing, but if this does, as good a business as the last two films have done, I'm sure Warner Brothers is like, okay, can we find somebody, whacked out of their mind enough to adapt out of the mind book in God Emperor?
Isn't that where we run out? Again, we're in the same boat where we're making a Lord of the Rings movie where it's an appendix of a concept that, Colbert. It's because I know there are other books, but I'm just saying.
Yeah.
We've hit the end of this particular. I don't know. I have a very I was looking at things as they rolled out this week. The Colbert writing Lord of the Rings, the Harry Potter trailer, which was miserable. Like, it is.
Don't even give a shit about Harry Potter.
Yeah, no, but it's miserable. It's a miserable trailer.
But
no, it's a miserable trailer, and I think
hard on that.
I think that's dying.
The JK stink on it is just
the JK Rowling thing is actually starting to fester. It was a wound before, now it's festering, and now you have actually people saying things like, "I can't believe John Lithgow's career is over." It's like, holy shit, really? Like, my God. And then the other thing that happened where I was like watching it, going, have we gone too far? Are we out of our minds? The Moana trailer the fucking hair was so bad, Rich. It was
Weird
so
Al
bad.
was making fun of it. Did you see that tweet, by the way, from Weird Al?
Yeah, it was so bad. And it's like, Disney can't find ways to make money, like something creative like Hoppers. And then, when we're talking about original shit, like, Project Hail Mary is based on a book, but it's an original movie based on a book. Then I saw a trailer. I don't know if you've seen this trailer, but I saw a trailer for a movie called The End of Oak Street.
Yes, I did.
I didn't know this fucking movie was coming out.
What was it? J.J. Abrams mystery movie. We knew he was working on something. It's just, it's like Cloverfield. It's like he's working on something, and then boom, oh shit, Cloverfield.
Rich, the trailer is mesmerizing. The trailer is holy fuck. Like, And then you look up and it's a J.J. Abrams mystery movie, and it's got Anne Hathaway. Holy shit, what is Anne Hathaway doing here? Then it pans the camera and fucking Ewan McGregor's sitting there.
Oh, hello.
And you're like, what is going on?
What is the one thing that can make this movie better than these two actors? And then they
dinosaurs. And it's in the weapons slot. Like it's like it's like I watched that trailer and went, we need creative shit. We need new shit. Like maybe it's time to let some of the franchises just kind of bubble. Like I read another article that made me sad this week was they're working on a Halloween video game. I don't need it. I love Halloween, but I don't need a Halloween video game.
Are you Mike Myers and you score points by slashing people? How does Halloween video
I think it's a multiplayer game. So I would be Michael Myers, and you and 3 other people would be like Jamie Lee and maybe a little girl or whatever. I don't know, or Dr. Loomis. I don't know. They're making that game, and then they were talking to Blumhouse, and Jason Blum was like, "Yeah, we're done with the Halloween franchise." But the rights went back to Mustafa Akkad, and he might make another one. And I'm like,
of course,
man, we need some fresh blood, kids.
Exactly. And we did have fresh blood this past weekend, and no one fucking went to see They Will Kill You.
Well, let's talk about that.
I really enjoyed.
I really enjoyed it too, but I'm going to say this to you. Like, did you enjoy it as much as you enjoyed this? Did you enjoy They Will Kill You as much as I enjoyed Ready or Not 2?
There are a lot of similarities, but I enjoyed They Will Kill You more.
I think They Will Kill You is very original, very fun. I also, as I progressed, I reviewed it on Friday on our Generation Movie Friday, a new release Friday. Mm-hmm. And what I will say to you is the farther I've gotten away from the movie, the more I am taken back, and I don't want to spoil or anything, but nobody went to see it anyway. The first time the trick happens, from that moment on, every action sequence, no matter how great it's filmed, no matter how amazing the action sequences are, it's diminishing returns.
I would disagree.
We have a fight.
I understand where you're saying, like, because it lessens our heroes' actions.
Yes. But it not only lessens them, it completely evaporates. I'll give you an example. There's a fight later in the movie, right? It's a great fight. She's fighting a room full of people with a flaming axe.
Oh, in the banquet room scene. Okay.
And it's amazing. And all I could think about as the sequence is playing out, I'm watching the great mechanics, I'm watching Zazie Beetz kill it. And all I could think about is the end of this scene is going to be like watching an Undertaker match. Ready, Rich?
Yeah.
But and so I
enjoyed it for the inventive choreography.
Very good
like the slow motion shot of her with the axe, with the
table. Amazing. Yeah.
I thought it was fucking phenomenal. There were several times. This movie has a really wicked sense of humor, and there were several times I was laughing out loud in the theater, laughing harder than at some comedies I've been to in the last couple of years.
But here's the thing. But original is interesting because it's the same. We're hitting on the second week in a row where a satanic cult of the bad guys.
Yeah, I'll admit the scheduling is not great for this movie.
No.
It could have used a little bit of room there, but
June,
this is more.
July. October.
Yeah. October would have been fun.
October.
This is like Tarantino. As I said to somebody, this is Tarantino in Kill Bill mode, with a dash of
Rosemary's Baby.
Rosemary's Baby Giallo tossed in.
I liked it. I did. The more I thought about it, though, I didn't like the plot contrivances started to pile up for me. It is, but. Again, fun. It's a fun movie.
It's so shot in like a 70s exploitation fashion.
Yes, it is shot in a grindhouse. Yes.
let me go with it. You know, I was just excited to see somebody playing in that milieu.
Yeah, and like,
And,
but
and doing a
the
good
other
job.
two problems I will give you, and let's see what you think. You have all these actors, and they're all big name actors. They don't get off the screen. They don't, like, none of their characters are written well enough to, other than for me to go or you to go, hey, that's Heather Graham. She was in Boogie Nights. Or hey, that's Rosanna Arquette. She was in True Romance. Or that's I think that's Malfoy. That's Draco. Holy fuck.
Yeah.
And none of it,
He's
like,
on the
none of them
Broadway
get
now.
off. What was it? None of them get off. Like, none of them have anything cool to do that much. I will say that the one joke that references Sam Raimi and the Evil Dead, I love that. I will never know. I love that. Yes, I love that. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Clip that. But I don't know. For me, it was like one of those things where it's like, but that movie absolutely tanked, though. Like, just so we're clear.
Yeah, it did. But it was, and it's frustrating because it was, you know, after we sit here and talk about its influences for 15 minutes or whatever, it was an original movie. You know, it wasn't based on pre-existing IP or a remake or anything like that.
The other interesting thing about that movie tanking, Rich, is that it's now 2 in a row for Warner Brothers and New Line, and all of a sudden the streak that was piping hot is now not so hot, right?
Well,
okay,
the
sad
has
news.
to swing back at some point.
Yeah, eventually you get to the mean. Sad news: Mary Beth Hurt passed away.
Yes,
she was a fantastic actress. She was 79. I did not know she had had Alzheimer's the past 5 or 10 years. And her daughter Molly Schrader, who's and her husband Paul Schrader, confirmed that she passed away. Her obituary, something along the lines, was an actress, a wife, a sister, a mother, an aunt, a friend, and she took on all those roles with grace and kind ferocity. Although we're grieving, there's some comfort knowing she is no longer suffering and reunited with her sisters in peace. She had a really great kind of like career mixed of stage and film. You know, most people are gonna remember her from this movie, The World According to Garp, which is
was one of our very first episodes.
One of our very first episodes 4 years ago this year. Yeah, she was fantastic in that.
4 years, Jesus.
We've been doing it for 4 years. I will also bring up this movie called Parents. If you've never seen Parents, it's a great 90s kind of like dark, pitch black horror comedy. About
she's also really good in Woody Allen's Interiors.
Yeah. No, I agree. Like I said, she was a great actress. She was in, Affliction. She was in Light Sleeper. She was Tony nominated for Crimes of the Heart.
She was Tony nominated 3 times, wasn't she?
Yeah, Tony, Crimes of the Heart, Trelawney of the Wells, and Benefactors. She was in Interiors with Woody Allen. She did World According to Garp. She did The Age of Innocence, 6 Degrees of Separation. So she was a really gifted actress that, later on in life did Law and Order, 30-something Kojak, and then she was in a couple of horror films throughout the 2000s and the 90s, Young Adult, The Exorcism of Emily Rose, The Lady in the Water, Changing the Air. And, she was a really good actress. You know what I mean? And, we don't have a lot of great actresses lying around. So, that's a sad story. The sad news of the day. Okay, let's get some comments. First off, if you're liking the show, like and subscribe. We have Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Threads, TikTok, Twitter, IMDb, all those places. Comments. Good evening, Joe Ridgely. Pretty good movie. I liked it. And then 4 years, you guys deserve a raise.
I know.
Or anything.
Hey,
a raise.
double what you're paying us now, Joe. Double what you're paying
yeah,
us
just
now.
double it. We'll call it even.
2 times 0 is 0.
Math is hard. But we're doing this movie tonight. We're doing The Color of Money, and it's I do like that it's your picture and my picture, and then Paul Newman and Tom Cruise above us, which is nice. And The Color of Money is one of those movies, again, a legacy sequel, 86. And you're just thinking to yourself, how does it happen, right? We'll start with production, as we always do. How does a movie like Color of Money happen, Rich? Right?
Well,
how does
the guy who wrote the original novel, The Hustler, wrote a sequel? And somebody said, let's make that.
Let's do it. And like I said, the interest, like you hear stories, right? So Paul Newman calls in not a favor, I guess, whatever it is. If Paul Newman's on the phone call and you're a Hollywood director, you're taking the call, right? So Scorsese gets a call in 84. Do you want to direct a sequel to The Hustler? The original screenplay was written by a guy named Daryl Poniscan. And basically it incorporated the first 12 minutes of the original film. And then Tevis wrote the book called The Color of Money. And then he died the exact same day that they had received the proofs of the book. So he sold the rights, sent in the proofs for the novel, and then Walter Tevis passed away almost immediately, which is sad and also kind of like just weird, right? Like weird and just how it happened. But they shot the movie in 49 days. It cost $14.5 million. It was $1.5 million under budget. Great cinematography from Michael Balhus, right? And then it's released by Touchstone after both 20th Century Fox, who did the original, and Columbia Pictures declined to buy it. Richard Price, who at that time was really hot. Like, you want a hot screenwriter in the 80s and 90s. You look at him. Like, so he had a bunch of novels, right? He had Wanderers, Blood Brothers, Ladies Man, The Breaks, Clockers, Freedom Land, Samaritan, right? Not that Ladies Man. But then he does screenplays. The Color
It'd
Money.
be great if it was, though.
Different. Very dark take on the Ladies Man. He does Streets of Gold, New York Story, Sea of Love, Night in the City, Mad Dog and Glory, Clockers, Kiss of Death, Ransom, Shaft, Freedom Land, and Child 44. Richard Price also writes for The Wire, New York City 20, NYC 22, The Night of, The Deuce, and The Outsider. So he is a prolific screenwriter. He gets his hands on the screenplay and basically adapts Tevis's novel and kind of structures it out. The role of Vincent was briefly almost an actor named Jean-Pierre Léaud, right? Who, he had, he made some interesting movies in the 80s and, kind of like was a very renowned actor, but he was younger. Like he was much older than Vincent plays in the movie, right? Because even like, this guy was making movies from 1958 on. So Vincent was going to be played by like a really old guy. And then the interesting side note, they built and did everything around Chicago. They had real pool halls, real billiard halls, just like The Hustler. And then this is edited, of course, by Thelma Schumacher, who is, of course, one of the absolute great filmmaker. Her and Scorsese together were always together, and always kind of working something.
I've got a question for you.
Sure.
And I just didn't have time to go back and check it today. When
Okay.
Paul Newman and Tom Cruise and Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio hit the road, that first place they stop, that's the first place that they stopped in The Hustler, right?
Yes.
Okay. Because the way the shots were set up, I was like, oh, this shot is like the shot from the first
and it
film.
becomes
and then I was like,
it becomes a really cool joke, and then but also like the going up the stairs is very reminiscent of Eddie, kind of like, you know, it's really kind of a great scene. You know, Newman says, I'm getting goosebumps because he's back out on the road doing what he's doing. But yeah, it is this. I think it's the same place. And then, you know, you get interesting things. They Scorsese thought about shooting in black and white because he's a big fan of, you know, he's a big fan of like influence of techniques and lighting, like in films like Black Narcissus and the original Hustler. And so he even said in a few interviews that Tom Cruise, the way he filmed Tom Cruise, was inspired by Black Narcissus because Cruise made him think of the nuns in that film. And it's partly because Cruise in the movie, Rich, has a baby face you would not believe. Look at him. Look at how young he is. And so like the way the film is shot, the way, like, it's just,
you're right. He still has actual baby fat in his cheeks. It's not the slightly gaunter Tom Cruise look that we're familiar with.
And this is also probably the last time Paul Newman is not elderly on screen. Like it's the last time that Newman is really, you know, in all of his glory. Yeah. But through Thelma Schumacher,
I think that 7-inch pompadour that that Cruise is sporting,
the werewolf, and his hair was perfect.
Yes.
You know,
pick up Joe's last comment, by the way.
Okay, let's see what we got.
Seeing as how we're there.
I wore the color vid. I was really in a village, but we always had a pool table in our house growing up. I made some decent cash in college playing handed. Mad Dog and Glory was a cool flick. It was. I used the song Werewolves when I plugged tonight's episode on Instagram and TikTok. That's perfectly fine. We want to be in that kind of like, that's perfect. Our hair is Rich's hair is perfect. Mine's not.
Mine's a
but one of the things that you read about that's very cool, the Schumacher and Scorsese working out how to do the sequences at the pool table, right? There are 3 or 4 incredibly edited sequences where things are like the balls are smacking and they're hitting off they're hitting on the pool table, and you're watching, you're underneath a ball watching it careen around a table, and there's some effective editing in this movie that is absolutely astounding. And it's all like it all plays into being in the room. Like you can smell the cigarette smoke, you can smell the stale beer. It's you know what I mean?
I would say it's you can't edit anything though if you don't have great cinematography, and all of those shots were amazing. There's shots where you're following literally the ball is staying right center in the square and you're moving across the whole table with it, and I'm just like, oh god, I need to see like a 2-hour documentary on just this shot. I think all of this is amazing.
Now they also had one of the cool things is they had Cruise learned how to play, could learn shots, but he wasn't super, like, it took him a while to learn how to play pool. I guess it's something that Cruise hadn't done. Now remember, he's a baby in this movie. This is the first year where he's actually big, and he's waiting on Top Gun to come out. So they have him perform all kinds of stuff. They have a professional player. Mike Siegel is the professional player behind it. He basically brought a pool table to Tom Cruise's apartment, and they worked on it for days, if not hours, if not, whatever. And then they also he was technical director on the film. So he and fellow player, I don't want to butcher this, Awa Mataya Lawrence. I think she's the lady that Fast Eddie plays later on in the film. That's another sequence, an editing sequence that I dare anybody to beat. Right? There is a sequence in this film where after Fast Eddie gets taken, he gets absolutely taken by a very prominent young actor playing a hustler himself, Forrest Whitaker. And the next sequence is Eddie getting his game back. And the next sequence is him just going to a series of people. And the way they tell that story is not by the pool games, but it's Eddie walking, handing somebody 100. And then the next scene is somebody handing him back 300 or 200 and it's a series of people, and one of them is Iggy Pop. One of them, I was
just about to say, and you know who one of them was, right?
One of the stories on one of the stories you can read about is that Iggy Pop and Paul Newman and Iggy Pop did not get along, and Iggy Pop rubbed him the wrong. Not a shocker, you know what I mean? Like Iggy Pop rubbed him the wrong way or something, and Paul Newman's just. I can't imagine Paul Newman at this point in his life just taking any shit from anybody. So I don't know the story. One of the big stories though is that one of the things that happens is as they're rewriting and doing script changes, they go to Jackie Gleason, who played Minnesota Fats in The Hustler. And he's, Newman was adamant that he wanted Jackie Gleason to appear in this movie. And then they had a real tough time fitting him in or finding a place for him because that character, and I was thinking about it today, would it have been cool, Rich, to see the Minnesota Fats character from a screenplay standpoint? Yes, but he doesn't fit in this movie.
No.
And it's a real.
What would including the Minnesota Fats character do for Eddie's character now?
Nothing.
What? Yeah,
except because he already has the redemption from the first movie, so he becomes a useless character. But I think the interesting thing here is they wanted to include him, they tried to, and then when they finally sent him a script, basically Gleason got a draft of the script where Fats was worked in, and after reading it, Gleason said, "I want to be part of this, but this is an important role for me in my history, and I just don't think." I feel the character's being added as like an afterthought, as like a cool throwback, as opposed to having part of the narrative structure. And I think it says a lot about Jackie Gleason. It says a lot about Scorsese for the idea, if you're going to make these legacy sequels, right, you have to make it count.
Yes.
You have to, if you're going to include a character that's got a past with the characters you're working with now, you gotta make sure you hit it. And I think it's interesting that he was part of the draft, but eventually got rid of it. And then, the young actors they had in it were perfectly fine to work with Newman and create this world. Interesting, fun stuff. But like I said, it comes in under budget. So they had given it $16 million. It only cost $14.5 million to make, which again is another kind of marvel of Scorsese filmmaking. He's not doing it now, but in the 80s he did, right? He was making movies
he knew how to
super under budget, you know what I mean? Like Lean and Mean. The movie runs 2 hours long, which is another testament to not overstaying your welcome. Because they clearly could have gone another, I don't know, half hour, probably. If you do, instead of, it's like the end of Rocky 3 in a lot of ways.
I think this is just long enough. That's
what I mean. Like, I think we're in the 80s. Everything was about not overstaying your welcome, right? we're in a filmmaking time where if we're trying to get people out to the theaters, I think filmmakers are making these longer movies, one, because they think they need that much time to tell the stories, but also two, because if you're getting people out of their house, you want it to be worth it. You know what I mean? Like in the 80s, we didn't do that. It was whatever suited the project. But it's an amazing. The technical aspects of this movie are really great. Balhu says the cinematography is fantastic. The editing is really good. The acting is great. There is a small story about Scorsese being nervous. Nervous talking to Newman about his character, because Scorsese being an incredible film fan, the idea of walking up to Paul Newman and going, here's what I think Fast Eddie Felson's thinking at this moment, after you have a star that's been in Cool Hand Luke, HUD, The Hustler. You know what I mean? Like it's
who's
a
played the character before and has lived with it all this time. Yeah.
Yes. It's funny, but he basically says to Newman, I don't think anything that you do in this movie, you should try not to be funny. Everything should be serious. And one of the things you can take away from this is that is a true statement. And the casting is another thing I want to talk about, because we just celebrated the first Academy Award, but the casting in this movie is so important, right? The casting is absolutely so important. And the three people that this movie rides on, Paul Newman, playing Fast Eddie Felson, that's a given. But finding Tom Cruise and having Cruise, his star power next to Newman's star power is amazing. But I want to give credit to another casting marvel. And she is in a lot of movies that are great, but she doesn't always get credit. And I want to make sure she gets her roses tonight, her flowers. Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio is amazing in this movie.
She's absolutely lovely. She was in the late 80s. She was on a streak. She's in this. She was in The Abyss, The January Man, which I think she's really wonderful in and absolutely adorable. But
she has scenes like you're right. It is a streak, but she is swimming with very big fish.
Yes.
And there is not a scene or a moment where she is not on point. Right? You were talking about The Abyss. I was thinking about she's also in Scarface. Right? She is really good. And her casting here, I don't want to just say it's the Cruise and Newman show, because eventually this movie becomes a 3-person movie that needs all three of them to stand, and all three of them knock it out of the park. She was nominated for an Academy Award, as was Newman. So, she doesn't always get her flowers, but she has, there is a scene with Newman where he's like, I don't want you fucking flirting with me. Where he's just like, stop flashing your shit. Your job is to keep him happy. My job is to help him. That's it. We're business partners. And she's like, don't flatter yourself. And it's just like, you know what? When you're getting out of the shower, put your clothes on. Like it is a stunning scene. But she also has a scene in the car that I reference here, where she basically, she tells Newman she's a hustler too, right? She is great. And I think when we look at like the poster for this movie, right? She's on the poster, but the names are above and below, right? You know what I mean? And I want to make sure that when we do our review tonight, she gets a lot of credit, because I think she's she is one of the pieces of fabric of this movie that makes it. It certainly, she's not Piper Laurie grade, but it's still, she's a big portion of why it's a great movie. Box office, fun. Movie opens at the Ziegfeld Theater in New York City on October 8th, 1986. It didn't go into wide release until a week later. And then this was a fun tiered release, Rich. For folks who've never watched the show and don't understand tiered release, in the 80s we had movies that would open a certain number of screens, and then they would get prints, not now like digital, but they would have prints, actual prints of the movie that would move around the country, or they would make more prints if the movie became a hit. So this movie on its opening weekend, October 8th, was at 635 theaters. It grossed $6.3 million, which is not a ton of money, a decent amount for a 25-year-old sequel to a pool movie. You know what I mean? It eventually gets up to 1,200 screens. God, I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm. I was gonna say, we can get to this when we get to like criticism of legacy. You said something that triggered a thought for me. But we'll get there. I'm sorry, keep going.
No problem. It eventually got to 1,205 screens. It lasted about 10 weeks in theaters, average run, and ends up grossing $52.2 million on a $14 million budget. If you adjusted the box office for inflation, it's a $158 million movie in this day and age. So think Scream 7 or Hoppers. That's how well it did. For a little kind of a drama that's a 25-year sequel to a legacy sequel to a movie from the 60s that was like a touchstone movie. It's really interesting numbers. I always like the tiering in the 80s, like it didn't hit everywhere all at once. It kind of had a time to marinate. And when it got to your city, you had to make an effort to go see it before it was gone. Right? Not like today. I mean, today it's a little bit like that in the sense that we're not getting any dramas that are not being immediately thought that will put them right on streaming.
Yeah. But releases are just like throw it out, spaghetti against the wall, as many screens as possible. Whereas, I mean, even going back to the 20s and 30s, distribution was like big cities, smaller house, it would build out and roll out until
the tier
Juneau, Alaska was like the last place to get. Seriously, this is why we have some silent films. I remember, it just reminded me of a story. Juneau, Alaska was like the last town on the theater circuit. And so this one theater was like, hey, we finished showing your silent, they reach out to the studio. We finished showing your silent film. Do you want us to send it back? The print's a little battered maybe. And they're like, nah, that's okay. Just, throw it away. So what they did was they kind of had like this place that they were starting to store all these prints. And then the theater closed down. The place that was being storing all the prints kind of got like plowed into the ground. But the permafrost there preserved all of these prints. And then years and years and decades later, they came along and somebody was digging, they were like redeveloping the plot of land or whatever. And they dug down. They found this like basically vault of all these old classic films. And a bunch of formerly thought to be lost films were discovered in this stupid landfill of movies. So
landfills are sometimes very important.
Let's have a hearty thank you for tiered releases.
The tiered system.
Yeah.
Okay. Critical response then and now. Good way to start this. Rotten Tomatoes. First off, I want to do the Hustler because we touched on it, but not a lot. Hustler's at 94 with 48 reviews, 94%. We use it as just an aggregate. It's not necessarily something we live by. 92 from the popcorn meter, though. So this one, when you look up, 87% on the Rotten Tomato meter with 46 reviews and 74%. So this is kind of, I was thinking about it today, Rich. It's as good as you could hope for from a legacy sequel, right? Critics-wise, viewers-wise. One of the things I would say that kind of sets it apart is, and one of the things I'm going to praise Scorsese here, although because it's not it's a real intricate thing. The movie has more in common with The Hustler than a typical Scorsese film does. And what I think is impressive is that Scorsese kind of pushes away his normal inclinations on things, and he makes a sequel to The Hustler. Right? It's an interesting kind of little small thing. For a lot of time, Scorsese, when he's making movies that he wants to make, that are his visions of what he wants to do. But in this particular case, it's because he loved another movie that he's making this sequel. And where it shows is, you know, him working with Newman. Newman is fantastic. Like, Newman's always fantastic. I'm not going to lie to you. Newman's always fantastic, and we're going to get into this. But here he is like, he's like a caged animal. Like he's like, there's a sequence where he's talking to Tom Cruise and he's like, I saw you playing and I wasn't hungry and now I am hungry, and your skill bled into my need for this. I've missed it. I lost my chance. And it's very much that kind of film. It's got a sports kind of theme to it, and it's got a comeback of an aging mentor who's teaching the new kid ropes. But Newman is great. I don't want to take anything away from Newman, but Cruise is equal to the challenge. Like, Cruise is, I would imagine in '86 I was 12. So I know I saw Top Gun and Aliens, but I don't know that I saw this at 12. I would imagine that this was one of those eye-opening things, like that kid that was in the fucking Air Force movie. He's now in a movie with Paul Newman, the sequel to The Hustler. That kid from All the Right Moves. That kid.
Legend Boy.
Legend Boy. Yes. Yeah, Legend Boy. That kid's in the fucking movie The Hustler sequel. But he's great. He is charming. He's effusive. He's every much the opposite of, like, there are moments when you just expect Paul Newman to beat the shit out of him. Like, just leave him senseless. And the other thing, the third stool leg is Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio, who is, she's charming, she's sexy, she's in
every one of her early films too, there's always a moment where it looks like she's just like, hey, I'm in a movie and I'm really happy to be here. And it's after they pull the Two Strangers con, and she and Newman are coming back around to the car, and it's like a minute before this, this moment here,
before he freaks out,
and right before he freaks out, and they're kind of just like laughing about, oh, hey, that was great, we pulled it off, and she kind of like cuts in front of him just a little bit, and there's this look in her eyes like, this is awesome. I'm having a great time making this movie.
Yeah, it's a three, like, absolutely. It is a 3-piece orchestra. It's three, like, I read one of the movie reviews on Rotten Tomatoes called them the Unholy Trilogy, the Unholy Trinity, and I'm like, they're all dangerous. They're all different. They all have their all ulterior motives. Like, we learn in this scene with her, when she's in the car with Newman, that she was arrested for a robbery of Vince's house, and that the reason Vince really likes her is because she has a necklace that's like her mother's. And then she tells Newman, it's not like his mother's, it's his mother's necklace. Right? So she has a secret. Newman has a secret. Newman's trying to mentor him. Vince has, charisma and just this bravado, this braggadocious kind of thing where he's like an untrainable, horse, right? He's just, I am me. And there are sequences that are so expertly shot. The sequence where they do the Werewolf of London, where Vince is, he's essentially ruining a city for them to hustle, right? He essentially, Newman goes into one of the places and says, look, there's a guy over there that has usually has anywhere from $5,000 to $7,000 in his pocket. He'll want to play you as long as you don't destroy the ace cue that's in the room. And of course, Vince takes that and systematically destroys the ace cue in the room to the point where Paul Newman has this great moment where he's just like, he has a friend that he's met that he's seen for the first time in a long time. And as Newman walks by him, the guy just shakes his head, and Newman comes back and just puts his head on the thing, like just puts his head down. And the Mark, who they were going to take for a lot of money, walks past him and puts on his leather jacket and is like, that boy's hot. And just walks out of the fucking building. And Newman's just like fucking crushed.
Because he's seeing $5,000 walking out that door.
Yes, just crushed.
Because,
and it's got some great lines in it. It's got like, there's one, Newman delivers this line with such gusto. He's like, there's no better money. I used to think money earned was the best, but I was wrong. Money earned is not as sweet as money won. And so he delivered, like all of those lines get delivered. The script is really good. It's a very solid script. It has one really big twist, a great twist that, there are two twists that happen where Eddie gets fucking gut punched. And the thing is, you can't have a Hustler movie without Fast Eddie Felson getting gut punched in some way. Mm-hmm. Like, it's far more harsh in The Hustler. And I think that's why the Hustler lands more fly. The Hustler is, widely regarded as one of the great movies of the 60s, right? I think this is a very solid sequel. It's certainly not as good as the original, but you can't have a Hustler movie without Fast Eddie Felson getting gut punched. First one occurs with Forrest Whitaker. He is beating Forrest Whitaker, and then he realizes that you a hustler? And it's just, it slowly dawns on him that he's been hustled the entire time. And that one, he's too old. He may be too old to play, but two, that's not what bothers him. It doesn't bother him that he's not as good at pool. He can't see as well as he used to. What bothers him is he didn't see the guy coming.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And it's just a mesmerizing performance. And then the second one is the gut punch where, Vince walks into the room and Paul Newman's celebrating after he beats Vince at the Nationals. Atlantic City, they have a big pool match. And, Fast Eddie says, I'm going to beat him. And Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio is like, maybe. I don't know, maybe. Right. And then, he beats him and they're celebrating. The woman in the movie played by Helen Shaver has come down and they're celebrating with apparently Paul Newman's sex and champagne. And Vince knocks on the door, puts an envelope for $8,000 on the mantle and says, that's your cut. And he's like, my cut of what? And, and basically what he says was, Vince says, when I laid waste to the guy that's the best in the field, my numbers shot up and my numbers were so good against you that I bet against myself. And then I threw the game.
Mm-hmm.
And it bothers Newman so much. He looks at the envelope and it becomes it's the defining.
Well, it was an attack on his pride, really.
Right.
That he was and his own sense of self-worth that I can, I could be this punk. I showed him everything I know. And, he knows everything I know. I still have a few tricks up my sleeve. And he had to he had for himself to beat Vince after getting, hustled himself. He had to kind of like, okay, I need to prove that I still got it, that was a fluke. And then he goes, yeah, I did it. And then Vince comes in and goes, hey, I let you win. That's, a kick in the balls.
It's a huge kick in the ball. And Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio really, she has the moment where she's just like, hey, we pulled the same thing we did, jazz hands. You know what I mean? Like jazz hands. We did the same thing, and but it's just a really great. The script hums. The Scorsese direction's great. All the stuff that happens with the ball, the pool balls, the cue ball, and like all those things are great.
Mm-hmm.
The games sizzle. Cruz is fantastic. Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio is smoking hot and just incredible.
There's one.
I was thinking about it. The two like girls, the girl next door people that I find myself strongly attracted to every time I see them. Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio, right? And the one I just started watching DTF St. Louis with Jason Bateman and Linda Cardellini is the other one. Like,
oh God,
she is the Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio of our time.
Yes.
But the movie is great.
One thing about the script though that you haven't brought up and about this movie is it's a legacy sequel. You don't need to see The Hustler to get anything out of this movie. It references just obliquely enough because Eddie is not the type of guy who would be very eloquent and loquacious about his own past. But he said, "Yeah, I was kind of put into like retirement. It's okay, and that was it. That's all you needed to know."
He says, "I missed my chance. I had things go against me, and I missed my shot." And so
that's all you need to know.
That's all you need. You're right. It works.
And this is his starting point of his character arc. This is what's fueling him. This is what's leading to all the choices he makes throughout the next 2 hours. And I think there are, and we're going to see varying degrees of this as we go through these other legacy sequels over the next several weeks. Just thinking out loud, I think Two Jakes maybe requires a little bit more on knowledge of Chinatown.
I think it really does. Yeah. I'm not gonna lie. I think when we go there, I haven't watched it in a while. But
Blade Runner 2049, maybe you can kind of skate by. I don't know. It's something I'll kind of think about as I do my fresh rewatch right before we come on the air.
I don't know that you need aliens for aliens, and I don't know that you need Maverick for Top Gun, but we just gave away what we're doing the rest of the time. But what I would also say is one of the things that has to be discussed. So as you're looking through the reviews, like they're really interesting, right? Almost all of the classic reviewers that we talk about say, Vincent Canby has a really good thing where he's like, it's 3 fully realized characters, and the journey with them is enough to make this movie satisfying, although it's not narratively sharp as the original, right? Which again, one of the things that's interesting here, it's great that it stands on its own. And the other thing about it is, I think what's great about it is it does stand on its own, because if it didn't, I think the problem becomes every review becomes, it's not as good as The Hustler, but good luck, right? But it doesn't happen. A lot of the reviews are, these 3 people are, Sheila Benson called them the electrifying unholy trio, and praised the metaphors of hustling and pool. Whatever Scorsese and Price have to say about these marvelous characters, it is not anything interesting. So there were some people who were like, because it's not as good as The Hustler, it may not be worthy of your time. But rewatching it today, it's so good. Like, I think it's how
old was Scorsese when he made this?
Oh, Jesus Christ. Hold on.
In his mid-50s, right?
Math. Give me a second. Let's see. When was he born?
Sorry.
He's 83 now. So 42, 86, he was 44 when he made this.
Okay. It's okay. It's not quite. I wouldn't think, based on just my own experiences, that he wasn't quite at that age where he's starting to look back, at his life and thinking about things and what he could have done differently and stuff like that. The way I think Fast Eddie is doing here.
No, I think what it might be, and again, this is just the way it looks, the way it's shot, right? Like just going through like the pool halls, and like Newman has this style of his own, and Cruise has his own thing going on, and the three of them together are kind of like this, this fun little duo. But like, look at Newman here, right? It's pure movie star bravado, right? It's pure, just holy shit, all three of them, right?
Yeah.
I think where I think people got off of, like, Siskel was particularly hard on the movie. He had said at the time when it came out that Scorsese's grit is gone and was not backed up by a veteran computer as in his other works, which is kind of funny because we're 5 years away from Goodfellas, right? So it's an interesting take, but I think that is a misperceived review. As much as I like Gene Siskel, I think where he's off on that one is that I don't think he's making this movie necessarily as a Martin Scorsese movie. I think he's making this movie as a sequel to The Hustler. Like, I think he's making it as a film fan who loved The Hustler, right? And basically puts everything that maybe up until this point, like the grit, the stuff that makes up a Martin Scorsese movie, to the side to honor the original. And I think it's something that you can do in a legacy sequel. It doesn't always work, but in this particular case, it works for two reasons. One, he really loves the original, and two, he happens to have Paul Newman, Tom Cruise, and Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio, right? So he has the components available to him to be able to kind of like not recreate the original, but pay homage to the original and also make its own movie. And I think the reason it doesn't have as much grit is because he was looking at it going, it's not Mean Streets, it's not Taxi Driver, Raging Bull, it's The Hustler was ahead of its time. The Hustler asked dark questions before, what does pool mean? What does it mean to be addicted to a game? What does it mean to gamble on fucking everything? Like, you know what I mean? Like, and I think it was ahead of its time. And so I think it's more Scorsese is pulling back on his personal picadillos and things that he likes to do because he wants to make sure he's serving the project and serving the Fast Eddie character.
Yeah.
Yeah. Legacy. Let's talk as we wrap up our talk about this, these two Paul Newman movies, but legacy and franchise viability. Here's a legacy that we need to discuss, Rich. I'm going to read off a list of films and we're going to talk about this for a moment.
Okay.
1959, Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. Lost. 1962, The Hustler. Lost. 1964, HUD. Lost. 1968, Cool Hand Luke. Lost. And probably, just so we're clear, the one he should have won for. 1982, Absence of Malice, a fantastic performance that we do not talk about enough, that has more to do with today than we will ever understand about freedom of the press. And then 1983, The Verdict, Lost. He then, in 1986, is given an honorary Academy Award, and then the following year, at 1987's Academy Awards, he wins for The Color of Money. He then is nominated the last two. He wins the Herschel Award, Humanitarian Award, which he deserved for his entire career. And then 95, he gets nominated for Nobody's Fool. And 2003 gets nominated for Best Supporting Actor for Road to Perdition. And so the legacy of this movie, and its most important legacy, is it put a gold statue into Paul Newman's hands, Paul Newman's very deserved hands.
Yes, finally.
It will forever be the movie that gave Paul Newman his Academy Award-winning performance. But one of the interesting side notes here is that it's akin to a continuation of the performance, because it's very much his vigor, even though he's an older man, middle-aged man, his vigor and his hunger, his need, it's all from that first performance in The Hustler, right? It's a continuation of a performance. It's not, and this is one of those rare Oscar things where it's like, we're giving you the Lifetime Achievement Award, kid, a year after we gave you a Lifetime Achievement Award. Yeah. But that's one of the legacy.
Oscars are a snapshot of the time moment.
Yeah.
So.
Well, no, but I don't want it. I would never want it to be said that I think it was one of those Oscar things. He's great in this movie. Like it's a phenomenal performance. He gives Tom Cruise and Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio a lot to do. He plays off them well. He's magnanimous. He is a fucking movie star in this role.
Okay.
Like, you know what I mean? So I don't want anybody to think that it's the movie that he's known for winning the Oscar for, but he didn't deserve it. Sometimes we get those. This is not one of those. But I also want to state he could have won for any of the other movies I just mentioned. In fact, at least two of them he probably should have won for. He should have won for Cool Hand Luke, and he probably should have won for HUD. Because that's a really challenging performance. Maybe he should have won for The Hustler. I don't know. But he wins for this, so it's like he's winning for The Hustler too.
Should have won for Hudsucker Proxy.
Should have won for the HUD. Oh my God. He's so great. The other legacy that happens in this movie is, what do you got? Hudsucker Proxy is such a good movie. Another legacy that has to be discussed is this is the year that the star was born. So every once in a while there's a black hole and it creates a giant sun, and that sun becomes a star that lights up a galaxy. And in 1986, that's what happened. Tom Cruise he landed in May in a movie called Top Gun, which isn't necessarily the greatest movie of all time, but it now has, it has like so much fucking things behind it that you just kind of look at. But he also had this movie, and this movie solidified him not only as a movie star, or not only as a guy that could open a movie, but being on screen with Tom Cruise, being on screen with Paul Newman solidified him. He comes out of this movie and just, it never stops. To now. We're in 2026. 40 years later, he's still as dominant as he was in 1986.
There's a couple of slight valleys there. It's not all peaked and plateaued.
No, but it's Academy Award winning roles. Box office never really never really falters. He's always been, you know what I mean? Like, he's always been solid.
Yeah.
So those are the two that I wanted to highlight. Do you have anything that you came up with, and because we come up with brilliant legacy things? What's your takeaway?
Nothing beyond that, beyond the fact that the things that we've already discussed, like this. Although there are examples prior to this kind of solidifies the idea of what a legacy sequel is. Beyond, and by is I mean not just it's a movie that takes place 10 years after comes out 10 years at least after the original, and has so and so many connections to the original, but in terms of like a viable storytelling option for characters to continue their stories, and and a viability from a business standpoint as well. That 25 years later, yeah, a lot of people probably heard of The Hustler. I would guarantee you, though, that a lot of people who went to see The Color of Money maybe never saw The Hustler, or afterwards went, oh, hey, hun, on the way home, let's stop by, the video store
Blockbuster.
and see if they
let's
have.
stop by you could say it. Blockbuster. They're not there anymore.
Blockbuster not big in the like 87.
Yeah, they were. Right.
Okay. Yeah. By 89 or so, I know they were like everywhere.
Maybe it was like your local video store. I don't know.
Yeah,
we could say
I was going to say Mountaintop
there
Video,
was a place,
but
not to date ourselves, but there were places you would go on Friday nights where you would go with your friends and you'd pick out stuff you wanted to watch, and then maybe buy candy or popcorn overpriced at the front of the store. It was amazing.
Yeah, because you could sit there, you could browse, you could meet absolute perfect strangers and have a conversation with them about movies, and maybe never see them again, or maybe get her phone number and have a good time later.
You could have met me. I was at a Blockbuster in the 90s. I was every Friday, Saturday, Sunday night. When I wasn't in college, I had worked at a Blockbuster, and I was in my element. I could give you a movie. You like this movie? What movie you want to watch? So it's there though. But again, that's just us reminiscing.
True.
You're right. I think it does for legacy franchise viability, right? This puts the legacy in legacy sequel. Is another way to say it, where it's got the same craft, the same, high stakes, same viability, same star. And it kind of, as we're thinking about doing this whole legacy sequel thing, this is one of the ones that immediately came to mind for me, right? It's the movie that you're like, they made it 25 years later and they were able to keep everything that made the original so great. Do they hit it out of the park the same way as the original? No. But there are other things to it that are enjoyable. Watching Cruise and Mastrantonio and Newman kind of gel and under Scorsese's direction is, a great way to create a legacy. It's a great movie. Like the rewatch today, I was like, I remembered I remembered the bits, but I didn't remember a full chunks of movie. Like I had a vision in my head of the one scene with I remember Newman and Mastrantonio in my head because I remember him. Paul Newman's angry. You don't see Paul Newman angry a lot because he doesn't really he doesn't have to get angry about things because all the ladies want to sleep with Paul Newman. So he doesn't really get angry that much. So, I remember it blipping in my head chart, but it's a great movie. If you have a chance to watch both The Hustler and The Color of Money, maybe back to back, pop some popcorn, get a nice, bourbon that you can fake as wild turkey. That's a deep cut. It is a great way to start. Now we're continuing this. I told Rich earlier. I can't believe how perfectly this played out. But I think the next 6 weeks of Generation Movie are going to be spectacular. And it all begins next week with one of the most underrated sequels, legacy sequels, and the only film that was ever directed by Jack Nicholson. We go back and we look at Jake Gittes, the sleuth with the cut nose from the original Chinatown, which we've done on the show. And we are going to do the two Jakes next week. It is a really interesting legacy sequel for two reasons. One, it's a rare legacy sequel where the original star directs. And two, It's a legacy sequel that, while misunderstood when it first came out in the 90s, it is now kind of a little bit by film buffs and people like Rich and I, kind of like a forgotten stepchild that is actually really good.
Yeah.
It's
I've always liked it. Thanks everybody else for catching up.
It's well, no, you and I are both on the same boat, right? We're like, we like the Two Jakes. Why didn't it hit? Because it didn't hit in the 90s. Mm-hmm. It had a real interesting time when it came out. But it didn't hit, and it kind of misunderstood. And actually, as you go back and you watch it, it's got some really great stuff in it. And Nicholson was swinging for the fences, like the idea that if I'm going to make a sequel to Chinatown, arguably the greatest film noir ever made, and arguably one of the 5 to 10 greatest scripts ever filmed, I'm going to try to swing for the fences. And do all the things work? No. But it tries real hard, and it's fun, and it's, you know, it's a little dirty, and it's good. And so we're gonna celebrate a movie that hasn't gotten a lot of love, and give Jack a little bit of some of his flowers. That's part of the reason we're doing the legacy sequels thing, is because we like giving flowers to movies that Rich and I both love. So next week, we got the Two Jakes on Generation Movie. We're here usually every Monday night unless we take a break. Rich has a review, or a movie he has to go see for a review. If you like what you saw, we also have a show called Loud Nerdy. That's my other show. Tuesday nights, 9 p.m. Me and Jerry Kimore from the band Slapjaw, Joe Ridgely, the head of the Indie Escape Network usually, and our good friend Raven, who shows up on occasion. Just kind of shooting the bull. We'll be talking about Daredevil probably, and a couple other things that are happening. And every second Thursday, we've Untrained and Unscripted with Riot Ryan West and Joe Ridgely. So if you like what you see, like and subscribe. Indie Escape Network on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Threads, TikTok, X, or whatever the fucking crazy thing is called, Twitter, whatever the fucking crazy guy's calling it now. IMDb. Rich, where can people find your stuff? Because you are as prolific as the Indie Escape Network is.
All of my writing can be found at filmbuffonline.com. We also have a Facebook page where you can get notified when new posts go up, as well as a lot of fun things like On This Date in History, Born on This Day, stuff like that. We try to keep it interesting. I'm on the socials at FilmbuffRich on Twitter, Blue Sky, and Threads occasionally.
JW Movie Guy, Facebook, Twitter, Threads, Blue Sky, IMDb, YouTube, Instagram. I'm all those places. Thank you for joining us tonight. We hope to see you next time. Next week, the Two Jakes. If you've never seen it, it's worth a look watch, just to see Jack Nicholson's only directorial movie. It's the only time he ever directed. So it's a swing for the fences. Doesn't always land, but it's fun, and it's, again, not nearly as good as Chinatown, but what is? Thanks for joining us tonight. Go watch a movie. Go see something. Have a good time at theaters. I think by the end of the next week when we get here, we're going to be talking about $150 million for a certain plumber from Brooklyn and his brother who fire fireballs and fight, angry turtles. Thanks for joining us. Everybody have a great week. We'll see everybody next week. Bye.